on my computer system. And action.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll reintroduce my thought. So I think, yeah, as I was saying, what I started to realize from reading the first chapter, and also from kind of a personal interest that I've started to gain in AI and ethics around AI, and the algorithms that are used in big tech, is that I think it's even more important for girls and for women and minorities to understand, not only what an involvement in technology can do for them, but what they can do for technology. And how it really goes both ends. And I think that is just something that I've just started to realize, that it's not only that everybody deserves this opportunity to pursue such advanced fields in STEM, that it shouldn't just be run by one gender, one race, one background, but that at the point that we've come, for technology itself to progress and to meet the needs of our world, you actually do need this representation and the multiple backgrounds. So yeah, I think that's a realization that I'm really starting to have, and that I think if they also start, if our campers and instructors who are reading this book, if they also start to see that too, I think that'll also be even more inspiring to them. So yeah, I think that's, so far, out of the many things I've learned within just the first few pages I've read, I think that's one of them.
Well, no, I'm glad to hear that. I'm a strong advocate that we need everybody at the table, diversity of not just gender and race, but thought, age. We all just need to kind of be at the table in order to kind of solve all of these issues together, and we're better together than we are apart. So I'm really, really pleased to hear that.
Well, it's interesting because I actually read the first chapter in April. And where the value lies for me is that you quickly got into where are the challenges in elementary, middle, high school age students, girls specifically, women of color specifically, Black women specifically. And then you started to talk about some of the challenges that are honestly just about virtually impossible to overcome once you get to college.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's funny because I had this, when I was trying to develop the book, I was trying to think, well, how honest should I be? Because I didn't want it to be to the point where I'm discouraging people, but I can't have one conversation about how tech is a great place without kind of talking about what's going on, and just being candid and being honest. Because if we're going to try to resolve the bigger issues of representation in tech, we do have to talk about some of these things that are kind of detractors from women even getting to that. So it was a little bit of a tough balance, but I said I owe it to anyone reading this book to have that conversation. But the rest of the book, I try to focus on what are the things that are going to make you successful despite all of this, despite all that we know, despite the challenges that we know of and the ones that we don't. What do you need to do to make sure that you're going to be successful regardless? But yeah, I did want to have a conversation about that.
So how important do you feel that the support of parents are for young girls getting into the space, or that still are interested in STEM? And Melina, because of your experience too, please chime in.
Well, for me personally, I think it all starts at home. When you have a strong support system, I think that you almost kind of feel like you can do anything in your life, be it tech or not. And when you don't have the strongest of support structures, for whatever reasons, it makes it hard for anybody to really succeed. And so what I was finding in some of my interactions were, young girls who were already demonstrating an interest in STEM being discouraged in like very obvious and not so obvious ways. And I think sometimes like parents don't realize how much that carries over for the remaining part of their careers. So you definitely need the academic support and you definitely need support in the workplace, but it definitely starts at home and at the community level too.
Right. And as you said, for better or worse, the influence of parents is huge. And I know that, you know, the parental influence, at least it's definitely true in my case. So I do have parents who are very experienced in the field of technology. If you want me to be specific, my father's a professor of computer science, and my mom has a tech startup in education. So I'm very aware that I was kind of bred, to appreciate STEM. And so I think obviously I got a lot of encouragement, and even, starting GLIST, so much support from both of my parents. And, this is obviously something that I think most girls my age do not get. And I guess, it is kind of the barrier of, even though, maybe your parents may not see the kind of the value in this or the potential, like how can you find it in other ways? I think that's probably still a challenge that needs to be addressed. And when I was reading, the section in chapter 1 that mentions the parental influence, I took note of actually one of our instructors told me, after on our last day of camp, we had a show and tell where we invited the parents to sit next to their camper to kind of see their final coding projects within each group, and whoever couldn't attend, we also had recorded them and sent them later. And so afterwards, one of the instructors tells me, there was this one parent who was just like, how is this useful? Like, kind of in like a very doubtful way. And, I think I realized, it may be shocking for us tech people to see that there are still many parents and people out there who don't see the significance and usefulness and potential of a tech career. And what I'm hoping, though, is that the child of that, parent was able to see it through what they had created. But yeah, it was just like, it was kind of a wake up call that, like, even though I think for people who are young, this is, it excites them very easily. But for those who still are because, technology is, and also at the state where it's at, it's very new, it's very young. So there are still audiences out there that haven't seen, where it can take you.
Yeah, and it's for a variety of reasons. Some of it's cultural. Like there's still people who think that these professions are typically for men, and that women in general are more of the caregivers or more aligned for more female-centric roles, for whatever that means. There was actually a person that I interviewed for the book, and she told me quite candidly, her mother did not want her going into technology. And it got so bad that she literally took her computer power cords away so that she could not turn on her computer because she really wanted her to go into nursing. And I'm just like, what? Like, this is ridiculous, and then some of it is just circumstantial. So I don't talk about this in great detail in the book, but my household circumstances were a little different in that my dad was supportive, but because my mother had been ill for a long period of time, and there were about 8 of us living in the household, living off of one income, the mindset isn't really at that point to think about your studies. Your studies are important, but there's almost kind of this base level need to survive. And it's in part the reason why I didn't pursue tech for quite some time, and for many Black women that's the case too, because they've been dealing with issues that have been thrust upon them, whether they ask for it or not. So yeah, it's I know that like everyone's like technology, but there's sometimes some cultural factors, some circumstantial factors, a lot of things that prevent women from getting from that point, from like when they're looking at computers when they're young, to actually pursuing a STEM career.
Right. Curiosity is a luxury. I think what I've, and I'm quoting this from a different memoir that I've read, but yeah, when you have, still these needs of, as you said, survival and to take care of family, things like this obviously can't, it's very hard for them to come into priority.
Yeah. And I definitely don't want to make it out to be like, that you should, I actually talk about this later on in the book. Despite all of that, despite challenges, we almost have to kind of find the perseverance and grit within ourselves to keep pushing forward and to be successful. So you just, however you find that strength, you find it and you push through.
So I think that over time, that kind of flexibility to be curious is what Melina said, will be more readily accessible. And my experience in technology is you have to be willing to be a lifelong learner and make mistakes and fail and try again. And the traditional spaces that women specifically are pushed in, it's like, be a teacher. There's really no failing at being a teacher, be a nurse. If you care for people and they happen to pass, like that's just part of the work. It's not that you didn't necessarily do your job well. But in technology, if you are pushing the envelope or you're creating new capabilities and not just kind of, tasking all day, you have to be willing to fail. And I think the more that becomes a commonly accepted kind of part of the process, the more everyone will become more comfortable getting into the space, but specifically allowing women into the space or encouraging their young women to get into the space.
I completely agree with that. I think there is a tendency to kind of say, like, to stay away from failure. And I got to tell you, failure has been the best teacher for me. Lord knows I still fail now. and I take it all in stride because it makes me a better person, and it makes me a better tech professional when I fail and I learn and I get up and I keep moving. And the continuous learning mindset is like a necessary for anyone pursuing a STEM field. It is the way how we're innovating it's just dizzying, like how quickly technology is just iterating and iterating into something new. And the skills that got you in the door are not the skills that are going to keep you in your career. You just have to be ready to just constantly be learning. So part of our job at IBM, we're supposed to take a minimum number of hours for learning, be it, and it can be anything that you want. So last year, apparently, I did like 800 hours of learning, and half of that was required. So you just have to be willing to embrace that and really love it.
I agree with what both of you have said about the being open to failure and to learning, and I think as I've kind of grown older and, through adolescence and stuff, I did kind of gain this confidence in asking questions, even if I was like the only girl in the room and stuff like that. But I think early on, and also I'm going to reference what I read in, like, I don't remember if this was in the introduction or not. But I think it, especially for women of color and minority groups and women and people who are underrepresented in technology, that kind of I guess mindset and openness sometimes I think comes to like in conflict with what kind of stereotypes they're afraid to face. So and I think the way that you had put it was that you do have to show this kind of like perfection and not vulnerability in order to be respected and be listened to. If you're kind of one of the little instead of the many, in the room in technology. And I think kind of what I had, especially when I was kind of early on in high school, there was always this battle of, I want to kind of show that I'm knowledgeable, but I also I need to ask questions and I need to learn, even if I'm afraid they might sound stupid or something, in order to actually gain that knowledge and show that I have, the skills. And so I think sometimes like that, there's so much back and forth and, finding the balance and showing, that, unfortunately you do have to be twice and 3 times as good to be equally respected as someone who might not be at that same level. But in order to actually get to that point, you need to have the learning to fail and the lifelong learning mindset. But it's I feel at times it seems that it's kind of hard to optimize both. And I think that kind of challenge is specific to these groups.
No, you're 110% right. I think as women, and definitely Black women and other women of color, I think we've been kind of conditioned to just be happy that we're in the room, that we're in the space, that we're amongst people, and not to rock the boat, not to ask questions, and to be slightly docile. And at the same time, to your point, like in order for you to grow as a STEM professional, you do have to ask questions. You do have to fail. And it's these really weird things that conflicting ideas that are being forced upon us that really it's maddening. It's really maddening. And even now for me, sometimes it's like, do I push the button? Do I invest this energy, or do I keep it moving? And really kind of looking at my values and belief sets and what I think should or shouldn't happen. So it's a constant challenge. And I feel heartened in that we are encouraging young women to be more vocal, to ask questions, to challenge, versus what I had growing up, which was just be happy that you're here. Like it's not acceptable. That's not an acceptable means of doing things.
Yeah, that's I can remember my father, who worked at an Apple store, authorized retailer, in the, I want to say it was probably the mid to late 90s. As a very young person, I had computers in the home, and I didn't know that everyone else didn't. Kind of like Melina, where you're kind of raised in this space and it's just like, this is normal. So then when you get out amongst your peers and you're getting these conflicting messages, it's like, really? And you start to second guess yourself. I would encourage you to be mindful that you're considerate of others, but they can't eat you, right? So go, push, because like you said, this is about improving technology, which improves the human experience and quality of life. That's what we're innovating for. Most of us. Some of us are doing something totally different. Right? But I feel like, and I know that when I'm in spaces where people are playing who's got the biggest brain, right? You get a lot of toxic and negative interactions from people who don't want to let on that they don't know. They don't want to let on that they're unsure about their own capability. So it comes off as though they know and somehow you don't. And somehow you should be grateful that you're in the room. And if we let you speak, or even if we acknowledge that we hear you when you speak, you should be grateful. It's 2020. It's almost 2021. And I'm really excited that we're going to go through these 10 weeks to review the 10 chapters in Women of Color in Tech, because I think it's going to be eye-opening. I think it's going to be enlightening, and it's like all ships rise with the tide. I really do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. Like I encountered that too with certain professionals in my group, and I'm like, I'm not going to play that game. Like clearly you don't.
Professionals.
And I'm like, I'm not going to play that game with you. Like of course you know more than I do. Like I'm fine. Like and if you don't, fine. It's like, but like I'm not here to just kind of push the status quo. I'm here to make it better for other people, so that 20 years from now we don't have to keep having this conversation like about women of color leaving the technology industry, in fact, or or the numbers being as low as they are. Like that's what I'm pushing for. I'm not pushing for who's the biggest brain in the room. Like that's a zero-sum game.
So what can we say to excite those that are going to view this discussion about participating in this book review? What are they, as parents or just adults in the space, going to get, and what are the young girls, 8th graders, that are going to be reviewing this book with us? What do you anticipate that they're going to get, or what do you intend for them to get from this this review?
Well, for the young girls, I want them to get energized and really excited about what the future is going to hold for them. It's a really great time to be in STEM. There's much more organizations that offer support, many more learning opportunities, lots of career opportunities. I mean, it is incredibly diverse, and the opportunities just grow with each passing day. So I want them to really feel energized about tech, and that they feel like, hey, this is something I can do. I belong here. Like there's no like, I don't know. No, you belong here, like right now. Right? And we need to start giving you the building blocks so that you can be successful, and give you an understanding of the ecosystem of support that exists so that you can be successful. And I think for people who are both parents and allies, they're probably already thinking about how I can help support, but just maybe find, I guess, getting a little bit more granular about what support looks like in an ideal world. Like if you're trying to help a young woman in the STEM field, what are the things that you can be doing? Who can you be reaching out to? If you're someone that isn't the parent, but you identify as an ally, what kind of behaviors and things should you be doing? Or for that matter, what you should be improving upon if perhaps you've said you've been an ally, but you haven't necessarily reflected that in your actions. So I think those are for parents and allies, those are my two biggest things that I hope that they get from it.
Awesome. Melina, for your GLIST girls and their parents and their caretakers, what do you want them to prepare for over these 10 weeks? And what would you like them to take away from the experience?
I think, well, similar things, if not the exact same as to what Ms. Tedrick said. I think, definitely the feeling of I belong here, I'm needed here. My contribution is not only valuable, but it's necessary. Uh, I think maybe also I mean not in in uh, not in a negative sense, but to kind of have their eye out in the future that like it's it's not only about, I think, getting interested, but staying in tech, and I think that's also something that I read and I learned from what I've read so far in the book. I think what we do as GLIST is like the first step, but there are many more steps after that, and just as many chances to stray away from STEM even after the like initial getting started, which is why I think we also work to build up the skills and not only the awareness of the initiative and of the problem, but so I think kind of knowing that I may fit, it's like guaranteed that I as a woman, or as a woman of color specifically, may and this is just speaking from our campus instructors, may will probably experience these types of things. How do I just how do I handle them? And I think that's why it's so great that there something like this book it exists, because it is such a it's written on paper or digitally. What can you do? Like, what can you expect? I think this is kind of the first time that I've actually seen like a blueprint like this. Everywhere on social media we're seeing kind of like the inspiration, but you gotta at some point realize the reality of it. I mean, both in the good and the bad ways, and how to actually make this a reality for you. Not just, I guess, admiring all of whatever inspirational video like Nike has released or something, but like actually applying this for yourself, and knowing kind of the how, I guess, not just the why, but the how. Like how can I do this? And I think I guess, so I can put it a bit more straightforward. What I'm hoping is that they know that a career in tech, this possibility, is not so far away. That with this book, they can see that there are tools, and that they're all feasible to use, and to and to make the best of them.
Yeah, Melina, thank you. You actually brought up something that I do think is crucial for just about anyone's career success, and I do hope that comes through during our review, and that's the need for community and the need for each other, because we will be talking a lot about what are the skill sets that you need to have, what are the things that you want to be looking out for, demonstrating your skill sets, as well as dealing with salary negotiation, because that is a very important conversation that needs to be had. But the understanding that you need people in your corner, like your friends, your family, your mentors, sponsors, coaches, whoever that may be, because you need people in order to be successful in your career journeys, whatever it looks like. And while you're building the skills, and you're getting an understanding of where you fit in STEM, you definitely want to be cultivating relationships with one another, because those are the relationships that will make you a better professional, and help you get through really difficult things that may happen in the course of your life, in the course of your career. So I do hope that as we go along, we build that sense of community and trust with one another, and the feeling that no matter what your path looks like, you will always have support in your career journey.
So let's start right here, right now, building community. 10 weeks of reviewing Susanne Tedrick's Women of Color in Tech, a blueprint for inspiring and mentoring the next generation of technology innovators. I want to make sure I read that right. You know, I'm zooming, I'm on other monitors. And girls leading in science and technology. Melina, thank you so much. Everyone viewing this, we invite you, purchase, download the ebook if you're a GLIST girl, gratis from the Pollination Project. We've taken care of the book for you, and we look forward to you reading Chapter 1, The Current State of Women of Color in Tech. Thanks so much.